Did you know that the producer of this event is a certified badass who has been doing this for a very, very long time at the highest levels? We met Kat a couple of years ago. She is a light in a sea of darkness. It's my great pleasure to welcome to the stage our producer, Catherine Bonandin.
Hi, everybody. Are you enjoying Anarchapulco 2026? Me too. Although, full disclosure, I'm one of the 11 staff members that's got some tummy stuff going on. So if you don't mind just sending me a little extra love, I'm going to try to get through the whole thing feeling strong, vibrant, and alive. I might need your support pushing through. It's been a rough first day of Anarchapulco for me. I want to start out by saying thank you. I know many of you are new to Anarchapulco, as we learned this morning when we did a show of hands. But for those of you who have been around for a while and know some of my story of dealing with coercive control in the family court system in the United States, with somebody who says they're a liberty advocate, but behind closed doors does not act that way, I began going public 2 Anarchapulcos ago. I told my whole story about how I was potentially going to go to jail for teaching my child how to read. That's a thing you can go watch on the replay. But I want to say thank you because y'all held space for me. And between that presentation at Anarchapulco, and then I actually gave a presentation at Anarchapulco about accountability and how cults are formed. And he was in the room. And he heckled me through the presentation, but I told the truth. And the attendees at Anarchapulco were like, hey, what? Is that true? What? And what has happened since then, that was 2 Novembers ago in Mexico City. First, it got really bad, okay? Really bad. December was rough. And then came January. We started to de-escalate. By May, he began treating me with respect. In the first time in a long time. I am still legally in the situation that I'm in, but he's not forcing it. He's not using coercive control. It's been about 6 months since he's threatened to try and put me in jail for something involving parenting, right? Like basic stuff. Like, hey, I can't drive to dance on Tuesdays. Can you cover that? And I'll cover Thursday. The court order says this and I can put you in jail. Like this is the kind of coercive control. Going to y'all and telling you what was going on and y'all holding him accountable within the community has had real, actual success. So I want to say thank you because you all helped take away one of the most horrible, terrifying experiences I was having ever in my life. So truly, I believe that community, it requires accountability. And I believe that a real community that's going to stand the test of time is willing to hold ourselves and others accountable. And when something's out of alignment, it takes the village. We cannot function in a stateless society when the people advocating for a stateless society are actually using the government to oppress their own family, right? It doesn't make sense. But I was so ashamed and scared, I didn't want to talk about it. I started going public at Anarchapulco, and it was scary. It was scary, but I did it, and change came. So I want to say thank you. And with that being said, I have started talking about this amazing community where I live and have for the last 5.5 years. You see, I felt for a long time that the libertarian activist community didn't know how to hold itself accountable. I felt like there was hypocrisy in so many ways. And I wasn't sure that the liberty, anarchist, voluntarist community was really for me. For those of you that have seen the Anarchast and you saw what it used to be like at Anarchapulco, it was crazy, right? But with freedom comes great responsibility. And I had this feeling in my gut that this community could take on that responsibility. And I thought, well, I'm going to keep trying, and I'm going to keep showing up, and I'm going to keep doing the work. And part of my accountability has been learning how to speak up for myself and tell people what's going on, right? So I have explored all over North America looking for a place to live. Somewhere where I would have that community, where I would have that companionship, that friendship, that village mindset, where we could raise our kids together, do life together. And at first I thought I was going to move to the Free State Project. I love the Free State Project, by the way, in New Hampshire. I'm going to talk about them a little bit here too. But they were a relatively new community. This is where they're asking 20,000 people to move to New Hampshire to create the freest state in the world. Well, what happens when a Move Here project starts? Who shows up first? It's the people with nothing left to lose. You're not just going to show up to a Move Here project if you have to sell a business or rearrange your children's lives or, the family. There's so many things that keep us rooted where we are. And when a Move Here project starts up, the first people to show up are the ones with nothing left to lose. And that can often mean a little chaos, a little instability. And I felt like it was too soon when I was out there. They hadn't figured out their accountability mechanisms yet. They had people that were out of alignment with what I believe their values that they were talking about, representing them. I went out and I visited many, many times. And I just felt, back then, 2009, 2010, I wanted something that was a little bit more established. Now, it took me until 2020 to end up at Greenbrier. So I went on this journey for 11 years trying to find where I belonged. I lived in a converted school bus with my ex and our 2 children. We traveled coast to coast, border to border, all over the United States. Sometimes we would just drive through, it was the Bitcoin bus. We were actually giving away Bitcoin and Ether and Dash, teaching people about cryptocurrency. And we'd stay sometimes 3 months at a homeschool friend's house or 6 months at a friend's house. And I found the longer we lived in the converted school bus, the more I wanted to root in and be somewhere, and the less I wanted to have to pack my house up and get everything ready and da-da-da-da-da. Not to mention the kids started to get bigger. It just wasn't feasible, right? Where do I go? Well, 2018, I showed up to Anarchapulco. That's not a Move Here project. We're not a Move Here project, right? We're an event. We're a conference. But what ended up organically happening, what you saw in the Anarchast and the Anarchist, is that people with nothing left to lose ended up moving down there. And there was some chaos, right? And it was not it, again, for me to live. I love Anarchapulco, to be clear. This is it for me. But I went home and I said, okay, where do I belong? Where do I go? And during this time period, I was actually court-ordered to move to a certain county through family court in order to have my kids have time. And I felt strange about that, of course, because my relationship with my ex was very mobile. We were traveling around, and now all of a sudden I am being forced, literally forced by the government in order to have possession of my children half-time to relocate to a certain county. I said, okay, how can I make this an opportunity? How can I make this a blessing? So I wrote a list of exactly what I wanted. It has to be in this county. I want my children to be able to walk to other homeschooled children's houses. I want to be able to take my chickens. I want an office for my husband to work out of that's not in the bus. I want an outdoor kitchen that's not in the bus because we're just starting to bust at the seams. I line-itemed exactly what I wanted, and I posted it on Facebook. 4 people recommended Greenbrier. I'm like, okay, what is this? What is this Greenbrier thing? So I pull up their website and I make a phone call, and Dave, who is the president of our board and the principal of the school at Greenbrier, answered the phone. He has been at Greenbrier since 1974. He came down as a teacher from Ohio to teach in the 70s, and he stayed, and he's great. And we had the best phone call, all right? I'm just laying in my hammock at home laughing and talking. It's the middle of the COVID lockdown. Like, everything is shut down. This must have been April 2020, after we came home from Anarchapulco, and then the world just, right? It shut down. So I talked to Dave, and he's like, yeah, we're still having potlucks on Wednesdays. And I'm like, ooh, do people wear masks? And he's like, we're outside. And I'm like, all right, I'm coming. So my husband and I went to a potluck at Greenbrier, and we loved it so much that we brought our children a couple weeks later. They loved it so much that we asked if we could land there first when we moved into that county, which I was court ordered to arrive in, right? We weren't in a state of hardship, right? We weren't desperate for somewhere to go, which I think when it comes to intentional communities, that's a warning sign. If people are showing up desperate for housing, desperate for community, probably not a good idea to do life together, especially in a small space, right? So we were not desperate for housing. We were curious, and we decided to vet them just as hard as they vetted us. Now, Greenbrier Intentional Community, it's a fascinating thing, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. Let's see if I can figure this out. All right. So Greenbrier Community School was formed on March 26, 1968. That's my birthday, except I was born in 84. And it opened for students in August of 1969. This was part of the free school movement. Who's heard of the free school movement of the 70s? Any of you? Okay, this was the pushback against the institutionalized education system. And this is when really the free thinkers of the time realized, government school is a big problem, right? And what are we going to do to create a way for these children to be educated in alignment with the values of freedom? And in fact, multiple communities popped up during this time period, one of them being Raven Rock's Eco Village in Ohio, which I visited. I thought I was going to move there before the court order told me I had to go to this county in Texas, right? I loved them. They're designed slightly differently. Greenbrier's designed around educating children. Raven Rock's Eco Village is designed around experimental architectural and agriculture design. So they're trying all these ways of moving cattle and chickens and solar-powered things, and they've been building this 3-story, passive solar-heated, giant building in the middle of the community. And I said, what's it for? And they're like, well, we're not sure yet. We're all getting old. It's going to be for the next generation because we're not going to use it. And what's interesting about Raven Rocks is that they, too, started in reaction to the public school system. And these were Quaker students and Quaker teachers in Ohio that said, why is this Quaker school starting to teach to the test like some public government school? This isn't okay. So they decided to do their own thing, and they started Raven Rock's Eco Village. Now, that's an interesting place, but they are getting old. They weren't able to get new families out there for whatever reason. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do if no one's here? And they're like, well, it's in a trust. The land will be protected. So I'm just putting that note out there that is a place that I think needs some love and time and energy. And they're open to creative projects. I was like, okay, well, I think my husband and I would be interested in growing cannabis. And they're like, cool, we'll let you use 3 acres, do a trial, right? Like they're really into experimental agriculture. So this could be an interesting opportunity for someone if you're looking for it. Now, Greenbrier currently has 16 child residents, 21 adults, 32 students who attend our on-campus school, which is mostly homeschoolers who come anywhere from 1 to 4 days a week, 9 teachers, 13 cabins, 5 school buildings, 1 community garden, 1 swimming pool, and 3 playgrounds. So this is a place where a lot of the buildings were actually built in the 70s, and they're starting to need support, right? Some of these buildings are starting to become dilapidated. They really need support. And when I showed up in 2020, they were at the tail end of a period of stagnation. So just like in Ohio, they struggled to get new families in, I would argue that Greenbrier had a similar lull in energy and excitement leading up into the COVID days. During COVID, all these people started saying, I don't want to live in this society anymore. I don't want my kids in a mask in a government school anymore. I don't want this pressure on me from the educational system. I'm going to look for something else. And people started showing up. Families started moving in, including me. I'm one of them. The school got revived. When I was there, initially, it was running 1 day a week. Now it's running 4 because people are showing up and they are excited. When my kids got there, I think there were 8 children, might have been 7. And I think the school only had like 11 kids enrolled, and they weren't charging tuition. Right? So I'm like, let's charge tuition and let's start really putting energy into this. And we have. And it has evolved into this beautiful, beautiful thing. Now, the reason that I mentioned earlier is that I was looking for somewhere established is because Greenbrier, as I said, started in 1968. So they've figured out their accountability mechanisms, and they have figured out a model that really works. It's a model that fascinates me, and I think it's replicatable. Not only do I think it's replicatable, but I think it's a model that should be in every major city all over the world, because it's an opportunity for families to raise their children in community and in alignment with their values. It's absolutely incredible. So I changed the photo on this to Jay Noon. I don't know if he's in the room, but he came and visited Greenbrier, and this was at our spring fling party, and this is his daughter. Our vision at Greenbrier is to inspire a passion for self-directed, lifelong learning and growth. Isn't that what we are all here doing right now? Look at us lifelong learners growing together. That's so Anarchapulco, right? It's so the Porcupine Freedom Festival. It's so in alignment with this community. It's incredible. But this is coming out of the free school movement, which was pushing back against institutionalized education way before the police were militarized the way they are currently, way before COVID lockdowns and vaccine mandates and all of this, right? They saw what was coming, and they prepared. The mission, so vision's where we're going, mission is how we're doing it, to nurture a community that offers student-driven educational programs and that provides a campus to model compassion, cooperation, and life in harmony with nature. It's really important at Greenbrier that the children have as much of a voice in their education as the parents and the teachers. So our school is run by the whole school body. This means when I say student-driven educational programs, they have a part in deciding what they are learning on a daily basis. Isn't that incredible? I wish I had that as a child. I felt like I was being babysat in public school, and I just could not get what I needed, right? So some interesting facts about Greenbrier. Greenbrier is a consensus-based community. There's no voting. There's no tyranny of the majority. You have to literally convince everybody that what you want to do with the community money or the land or the property is a good thing to do. Or at least get them to say, you know what, I disagree, but I'm going to let you all try. I think y'all are going to fail, and I'm going to say I told you so later, but I'm going to get out of the way, right? Raven Rock's Eco Village functions the exact same way. Raven Rock's Eco Village has not taken a vote, ever. Consensus-based decision-making is not easy. Let me tell you, I've been there for 5.5 years. It is not easy. You have to really be able to communicate with people because nobody's going to be forced to do anything. It is completely voluntary, which I put on 8. It's voluntary. Everybody there is saying yes, right? And this also means that one no is the no. If there's somebody who says, okay, this new person that wants to move in, I don't have a good feeling about it, no, then it's no. You can only move into Greenbrier if everybody there says okay. And you can only stay there, right, if the community is in alignment with that. This is not an ANCAP community. Number 5, this is some other sort of anarchy. I don't know what, maybe someone in the room does, but this is voluntary, consensus-based decision-making. And it goes the same when we're letting people in. One person can't kick somebody else out, right? After we've let you come to the community, the only way you can get kicked out is literally if 100% of the people there don't want you there anymore. And that's happened in my time there, because they did have to start getting some of these accountability mechanisms functioning. So what does that mean? Are we vulnerable when the people we live with can kick us out? I don't know. I don't feel that vulnerable because I have positive relationships with the people there, even when we disagree. And sometimes they're not fun. It's hard when you disagree, especially when you're talking about where you live and how you're doing life, right? And you're making these decisions together. But it's working. It's very slow moving. Consensus-based decision-making is not fast. Things are discussed. Pros, cons, what ifs. And because of that, I believe that they are able to stay on a good, healthy track. People can't come in all future faking and I'm going to raise all this money and make this place wonderful. It doesn't move fast, right? People can't come in and cause a whirlwind and take control over the organization. It's slow. Somehow, I attended 2 potlucks and moved there. I have never seen that happen in the new families that come. There are people whose kids go to school for 2 years before they ask to be able to move. And then it's like, oh, it's like a 4-month, like, well, somehow I just got sucked into the vortex. Right time, right place, right people. We went to 2 potlucks and moved there. So this is not a move here project in that we're not necessarily looking for people to come live here unless you're really into the way we're doing things, which is raising our children in a village together. I mentioned number 4 requires positive, healthy relationships. If you're a dick, you're going to get kicked out. I actually kind of love it because, you can't do that in other places. No one owns their home. Radical idea, okay? And I went into this knowing that the houses that exist can be lived in by community members, and we pay dues every month. Our dues are very low. Half of it goes to the community account, half of it goes to the school account. Our dues are very low because there's the expectation that, 1, you are going to fix up and maintain your house. And there's the knowingness that every bit of remodel work that you do on your cabin is a donation to the nonprofit. So what you put in, that's staying there for future generations. It's a weird concept. So my husband and I did some math, and we were like, okay. We ended up taking over, it's now a 4-bedroom cabin. At the time, it was 3. And we said, okay, we're gonna steward this space. We lived in the bus long enough. We're going to steward this space. And we did some math. How much would it cost to rent a 4-bedroom house with enough land to have chickens? At one point, we had goats. Okay, we're not going to spend more than that every month remodeling the house, right? We're going to keep it under that because if we were renting, the money would just be gone anyway. We know that we're not creating a financial investment for ourselves, but this is a social investment, and this is the absolute most phenomenal environment that I have ever had my family. It doesn't need to be a financial investment, right? The nonprofit owns the land, 173 acres. So I can take off and walk miles through the woods every day. It's amazing. I've got a bird ID app, Merlin. If you don't know it, check it out. It's really cool. And it'll listen to the birds and tell you what it thinks you're hearing. I love it. I go walking through the woods. I get my little bird app on, listen to it. And I've got some crows I'm trying to make friends with, all right? I had a hawk. Her nest fell because the branch broke. She's gone, and now this flock murder of crows is what they're called has kind of started homesteading around my house. So I'm like, I heard that they'll like bring you gifts, you know? So I'm trying to cultivate this relationship with them. They follow me through the woods when I walk. It's so cool. So I feel really connected to nature. And I'm an hour away from Austin, Texas. So I'm close enough to major hospitals, you know. My third home birth didn't go as planned. I had to transfer to the hospital. Okay, we were close enough. It worked out. So many home births have taken place at Greenbrier. The midwives come out and people have babies in their cabins. It's really, really cool. I wrote accountability mechanisms twice by accident. I see it now, but it's that important. There are accountability mechanisms at Greenbrier. And I think I talk about the structure here in a little bit, so I will get to that. Here's a picture of some of the kids learning. You'll see they're not sitting under fluorescent lights. This is, I believe, a math class, and they're sitting outside working in the sunshine together on clipboards. Homesteading is a way of life at Greenbrier. This is my daughter, Josie, a few years ago. She's older now, and this is my son, William, over here. And these are potatoes that we grew in our front yard at Greenbrier. When you have 173 acres, and you all are able to utilize the land in some way, we ended up with like 100 chickens and 4 goats at one point, and a garden. There's a community garden. You know, there's just so much opportunity when you're working with other families. Here's some mulberries that we picked from the mulberry tree greenhouse. Kids actually having class here in the garden. You can see it looks like lettuce or something planted back there. They're pointing at these garden beds. Every school year is different at Greenbrier. We literally create customized individual education plans every school year based on the families involved. So if the kids want to all have their own garden bed, that school year they each get their own garden bed. If the kids want to do a community bed, that school year they do a community bed. So it's really like a choose your own adventure every single school year. And it does depend on which kids are there. Here's a bunch of us from the community. We actually went on a field trip last school year. This is my daughter in the black shirt on the left. And I don't know where everyone else is. My son's way up on the top there, wearing an Anarchapulco shirt, out and about in downtown Austin. We went to the Science Center there. But look at this. Does this look like school? It looks like family, right? It is so cool. I don't have the type of relationship with my family where like my sister's watching my kids or my mom before she died was. I'm 2 states away. I live in Texas. My family's in Missouri. I didn't have any sort of built-in support. Look what I have now. Do you see this? It's absolutely incredible. And Miley, who's here, she's doing kids camp here. She came from Greenbrier to run the family camp. And it does feel like family to me. Monday through Thursday, we offer core curriculum, academics in the morning, and electives and theme-based learning in the afternoon. What you see here is a Game of Village session going on that I'll tell you about later. This is Naja. She's here. She's doing acupressure. She's an acupuncturist. If you're wanting some sort of treatment, you may be able to link up with her. But she was a teacher at Greenbrier for a few years. And it's all ages, over 5 in the school. Obviously, the community is all ages, but over 5 are the people that we serve. And because of that limitation, if you will, that's written in our bylaws and our founding documents, because we're not, I think in the state of Texas, that's like babysitting age, right? After 5, you have less restrictions or whatever to have kids there. Well, some of us were like, hey, we've got older kids at the school and our younger kids are seeking something. So we just started a meetup on Tuesdays, which Miley and I ran, and it grew into this huge, amazing community of moms with young kids. Well, what happens then? The kids are interacting with the older kids at the school. Josie, who's 4.5, my daughter, is just sort of organically joining the kindergarten. She's like leaving the preschool kids and plugging in with the kindergarten kids on her own at her own pace. Purely her choice. You know how many kids have a traumatic first day of school? I mean, maybe some of you in the room remember being sent to school when you wanted to be around your family. These kids get to join society organically at their own pace. The school is run by the school body. I mentioned earlier that is the teachers, the students, and the parents. They all give input into rules, curriculum selection, and how the school day runs. These kids actually ask for rules. They're like, hey, this thing's happening. We need to work it out. Talk about conflict resolution from a very young age. How many of you were in a school where the rules were imposed upon you? I was. These kids get to make it up. Here's our expectations for how the school day is going. This thing isn't working. The chore chart. We all do chores at the end of school together to clean up the schoolhouse and get it ready for the next day. And I didn't mean to click that. The kids don't like the way the chores are being distributed. They come up with a new way. It's awesome. Our community, on the other hand, is run by the on-site residents. So these are the people who live there. The school has children who live there, but also people come in from off-site. There's teachers who live there, but also teachers who come in from off-site. The community, those of us who live there, we make decisions together. We have a monthly meeting, and we use consensus-based decision-making. But you do have to show up to be heard. If you're not coming to the meetings, it's kind of silly to be angry about the decisions that are being made. But we do have things in place. If a decision is made and you're gone, there's a 2-week ratification process where you can say, hey, I just read the meeting minutes and this thing's not going to work, and here's why. In our consensus way of doing things, you can actually still block it within 2 weeks of the decision being made. That's because a lot of the people who live there are like me and travel for a living, right? We've got people who do Ren Fair booths, very successful entrepreneurs in the Ren Fair system where they go work different booths all over the country. So they come and they come back. And this is a protective mechanism so that decisions aren't being made when only 2 people show up and, for some reason, everyone's out of town or something. Sometimes in the heat of the summer, I don't know, show of hands for who's been in Central Texas in August. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's so hot. So a lot of us leave during that time period. Now, this is Game of Village. This is a class I'm teaching right now. And this is something I feel really passionate about. This also came out of New Hampshire. Game of Village started in 1973. A woman named Sia hosted a summer camp. And she brought kids together to build a miniature society on 1/20th scale. This ran as a summer program. Ours runs as a school year program. So here's what happens. The kids make their own miniature avatar. They're about 3 inches tall, all right? We're talking 1/20th scale. So they're actually doing the math to figure out, all right, this is the size of the person I'm going to make because they're a child or they're an adult. This is the size house that I want. They have to draw blueprints before they can get a loan from the bank. The loan from the bank is approved once we see their blueprints, which means they're drawing it out, they're doing the math. Some of these kids are young, as you can see, and they need some assistance with the math, but they help each other, or our math teacher is there on site in this play-based education, okay? So she's there to help them if they need it, and she also runs the financial part of the trading post. So the kids come up and they say, okay, here's my blueprint. They get approved for a loan. Now they get to fill out a supply sheet and they get to order what they need to build the house that they drew the blueprints for. And so they actually do the math. They figure out what they need. They place an order. They go to the math teacher. She has them write a check. They change it on their ledger. And then they start building their houses. You can see that one child here built a cob house, this one with the little fairy in front. And I showed a picture up top. This is her working with cob. So when I say child-led, we have Game of Village, right? And I say, how many kids want to build in this method? How many kids want to build in this method? 3 wanted to build with cob. So that meant that we brought a cob builder in who taught them how to make the cob and then how to build the base for their house and then to construct it and to actually create it. So this is a type of real-life, skill-based, play-based learning that I had never seen anywhere else. I think it is incredible. So on Tuesday mornings, I teach Game of Village. We picked a theme for this year. It's Revolutionary American history. The kids started out in 1776. For those of you who are Americans, you know exactly why I chose that for this year, because we're facing tyranny in our own government, right? And I wanted the children to understand the philosophy of liberty and what that revolutionary spirit is all about. So at the beginning of the school year, they got to decide, am I going to be a radical colonialist who wants to fight against England? Am I going to be a redcoat British soldier? Am I going to, invade these people? Am I going to be a native? Am I going to be a space traveler? We do have some time traveling characters that were built into this year. Then we break for lunch, and I teach good citizenship after that, which is the actual terminology in the state of Texas. You're required to teach good citizenship to your children with a bona fide curriculum. So I wrote a curriculum, and I'm teaching these kids about the American Revolution. I'm teaching these kids about the great thinkers and writers, and I'm really working on them right now about the 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution. The first 10, I'm really laser focused in. The Bill of Rights. I want these children to understand that they have the God-given right to speak, right? That they don't have to allow the government to come in and sleep in their house. But to make that real, a bunch of the teachers and I wish I'd posted a picture of this actually. We made a whole bunch of redcoat soldiers, and the kids showed up in January, and there was an invasion. There were redcoat soldiers in all of their spots. They were not happy. I don't want a soldier in my house. I'm like, well, what are you going to do about it? They ended up having a little battle, and they were throwing firecrackers. It was great. We had so much fun. Right now, in this exact moment, Game of Village is taking place here at Anarchapulco. We are doing a 1-week micro version. This is a trial, an experiment, but I went in and took a picture before my presentation. Kids have already started building houses. So whereas in Greenbrier, we're giving kids a pretty big, it's like the equivalent of 3 mini acres. We're on a 1/20th scale, right? So imagine shrinking that down. But they each get their own homestead, and we're actually homesteading in the woods. They're plotting out their spot in the woods. These kids are doing a micro version here on a drop cloth. Now, I'm like, can we take this to the Porcupine Freedom Festival? Wouldn't kids love to play this at a freedom camp out? And you know what I really want to do at Liberpoco? Take that drop cloth, and I want to put the shape of Liberland on it, and I want the kids to homestead Liberland and make their own little micro society. And I have a feeling they're going to be teaching us some things. I feel like the possibilities are limitless. So right now, we are actually raising money to send teachers to New Hampshire for Game of Village training. I went and visited the original Game of Village. Sia has passed away, but her niece is on the board and is running the summer camp. And they have offered for us to bring up Greenbrier teachers and actually train in New Hampshire for the whole 5-week summer program with the original Game of Village. You guys, this is amazing. But I got to get them up there. I want to get at least 4 teachers up there and have them be a commissioner in the original Game of Village. So if you guys are feeling generous today, I've put a USDT, a PayPal, and a Bitcoin address up here because I want to see both of these models go viral. I think Greenbrier Intentional Community and Community School is phenomenal. It is so unique. Has anybody here ever heard of something similar to Greenbrier? I haven't. It's village education, and it is so sustainable. I was a homeschool mom, and I was tired. But now I have other families that I'm raising my kids with together. It's amazing. I didn't even know it was possible. And Game of Village, I think, has the potential to actually completely redefine the education system all across the globe if this were to get out there. Now, what other places do I know of where Game of Village has taken place? There's a school in New Hampshire for dyslexic boys. It's like a boarding school. And they take 40 boys out and they homestead like a 5-acre farm. They actually wrote like a really thick curriculum that I use to kind of spin off of what I'm doing at Greenbrier. And the way that Greenbrier learned about the Game of Village is that Ross and Saunders, the dyslexia school in Austin, started doing it. Then Bastrop Montessori started doing it. Well, Bastrop Montessori is run by a former Greenbrier child who grew up at Greenbrier, became an adult, who actually has a child and grandchildren living at Greenbrier. That's the cool thing. It's like 3 generations living on the same property in your own autonomous spaces, right, that you're stewarding, door you can shut, but you're still there. You're walking distance. There's multiple 3-generation families at Greenbrier. It is so, so neat. So we learned about Game of Village, and I think I've participated. This is my 6th Game of Village school year, but this is the first one where I've been the primary teacher. Now, why did I come on to teach a kids class when I'm like so busy with Anarchapulco and Librepolco and it's just so much work and da-da-da-da-da? Because my son is about to age out of this kind of education, and I wanted him to have another Game of Village, and we couldn't find a teacher, so I said, all right, I'm going to do it. And it has been the coolest thing that I've ever participated in. And I'm so glad that I stepped up to do that and then putting the time and energy out, because I am watching these children create their own world right before my eyes. And I'm helping them learn how to do all sorts of very practical skills, sewing. In order to get your sewing certificate, you have to sew your own bag. Boys and girls have to sew a bag that their little peep can come in. I meant to bring my peep up here, actually, but she's in some bag somewhere, and I can't find her. But I took mine, and I told you all about Dave, who's been at Greenbrier since 1974. Well, both of our peeps are on tour, and I've been writing back from Puerto Vallarta to the school kids because my sub has been reading the letters, and I told them that I time traveled and that our peeps are here and that we're checking out what it looks like in other parts of the world where society is organized differently. And we're attending this amazing event that is in alignment philosophically with the values that we're teaching during Game of Village. It's amazing. What do you guys think? Do you guys like the concept of Greenbrier? Is it interesting? I feel like I found a diamond in the rough, okay? It's not a startup project. It has stood the test of time. It has stability. It has longevity. And I think it has the ability to completely transform the world. But the thing about living in community, like truly living in community, is that you have to participate in radical self-accountability. We all have flaws. We're all in a different place on our evolutionary journey into becoming our highest self in this space, right? And that means that sometimes we behave in ways that are not in alignment with coming together and staying together for the long run. So I've been trying to weigh all of my decisions, especially with Greenbrier and also with Anarchapulco. Is this creating longevity? Is this going to somehow sever something, or is it going to grow deep roots? And is this creating a unifying force, or is it causing division? And I believe that saying no and holding people accountable is actually a unifying force. I don't believe that no, that behavior is not welcome here is creating division. I think that unifies everybody with a standard of behavior, right? And in order to exist in a space like this, you have to function with a standard and expectations of behavior, how you're going to treat one another. We run our own electric lines. We run our own water lines. We have a well. We have people who live off the grid entirely. We deal with our own roads, and the road going up to my house is a shit show right now and needs to be dealt with. We just haven't had time, but it is one of the hardest and yet most fulfilling things I've ever been a part of, because I can see the fruit of my labor. I get to design the house I'm living in and make it exactly how I want it. My home is a co-created piece of art with my husband and my children. Is my husband in the room, by the way? I don't know if he is. He's running the Anarch Awakening retreats, so he may not be in here right now in the ceremonies. And you guys, we do have Bufo and combo ceremonies still available if you're interested. And we've got poker tonight. And I'm switching into Anarchapulco work mode all of a sudden. My brain just hopped the tracks. Sorry. All right. I only have about 30 seconds before my time runs out, I believe. But if one person has one question they want to shout out, I'll answer it. Yes. So she said I mentioned Austin, but not which city. We're in Bastrop County, which is just east of Austin. And it is very rural, but I would consider it a homeschooling mecca. If you want to raise your children in an environment with lots, Stacy knows, she lives in Bastrop. If you want to raise your children in an environment where you can homeschool in a really cool way, you can plug into all sorts of stuff. There's so many things happening at once that, you have, 10 minutes? Sweet. Who else has questions? We can go there. Anybody else have questions? Yes. The total number of residents at Greenbrier? How do I go back? Somewhere around 30. It's not very big. I think, honestly, we need probably 16 children, 21 adults. I think to really function well, we need a minimum to double that. It's really hard to do electric and water and roads with this many people. They're in those numbers. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So the education right now, our oldest kid is a 15-year-old. What we're finding with community-based education is that when kids become teenagers, they're ready to specialize. They're kind of done playing in the woods and crafting and learning the basics of reading, writing, arithmetic. They've figured out who they are socially, and a lot of them are ready to work or to specialize into some sort of higher learning. So we can go up into adult with education. We do have adult programming as well, but in the 1 to 4 days a week school program that we put on, our oldest child right now is 15. Who else? Way in the back. Now we got mics for the questions so y'all can hear the question.
It sounds like a real piece of Eden you got going there. Have you ever had government intrusion, and how do you deal with it?
So there hasn't been much government intrusion because we live in an area where everything's unregulated. The only two things that Bastrop County gives any attention to is, have you submitted the GPS for your well into the county? And they technically want to know about septic, but we DIY a lot of stuff at a lot of houses and have had no issues really whatsoever. Do you have another question? Who else? Wait, you and then you. He's bringing the mic to you.
I think I heard you say one person can keep you from getting in, but it has to be 100% for you to be able to go.
Correct. So it's 100% either way.
Okay.
Like one person can block you from coming in, and one person can block you from getting kicked out. Right? So, there's no tyranny of a majority. Everybody agrees. And we have kicked people out. And sometimes it took weeks or months of conversation for everyone to get on the same page, but it's happened and it plays out eventually. You had a question.
I was just curious, is everyone in the community, is it all school-age kids, or is there anybody without school?
There are some people who live in the community without school-age kids. Some of them are grandparents of school-age kids, and some of them actually grew up at Greenbrier and still live there and help in ways outside of teaching. So we need so much support at Greenbrier, right? We need people to clean the spaces. We need maintenance work. Honestly, we've got about 3 buildings that I would love to just completely remodel so that we could use them for the school, because they've kind of reached that point where it's like, can't really have kids in there right now. They were built in the 70s. They need support. But now that more families are showing up, we're getting a lot more energy put into a lot more spaces, and we're just kind of tackling one at a time. But there are some people who live there without school-age children, yes.
I was just curious what you would think, how could this be templatized so it could be replicated throughout the country and other cities?
I would love to see people start their own Greenbrier. I think, honestly, the biggest obstacle right now would be the price of land, because in 1968, when the nonprofit status became a thing in the United States, a bunch of these hippies went out and they bought huge chunks of land that are now worth millions of dollars, right? Like Greenbrier's land is worth a lot of money, and a bunch of hippies paid for it. So I think the biggest obstacle would be buying the land. But if you could pool your resources together with people, or there's somebody who's willing to be a big donor, or you can write a grant. I have started writing some grants. I'm getting $10K there, $10K there, to work on some things. And I know there's some like big Mac Daddy grants that exist out there. If you're good at that, or you know someone who is, you can probably manifest the resources for it. But ultimately, once you have the land, I think the biggest obstacle is us. Can we figure it out? Can we get along? Can we hold ourselves accountable and each other, right? But I definitely think if you wanted to replicate this somewhere, it is possible, absolutely possible. And I mean, if you want to create your own model, sure, you don't have to do it the exact same way that Greenbrier is, but I think it's brilliant. Kind of how like the Bill of Rights is a brilliant document. And if governments actually did that, they protected our right to free speech instead of imposing themselves upon us, right? We would just live in a different world. And I think Greenbrier is one of those places where functionally the way it's set up is brilliant, but it can fail if the wrong people are there, which is why it is so important that, one, we're careful about who we let into our spaces, we go slow, we get to know each other, and 2, that we do act swiftly and diligently if we are dealing with accountability issues, right? Anyone else? Yes. All right, she's asking like high school completion, what happens with that when the kids are aging out. So in the state of Texas, a homeschool parent can actually write a diploma. So you can graduate your own children in the state of Texas. Where I live right now, a lot of children are attending the community college as high school. Like a lot of these homeschoolers, they're going to the community college. They're starting at 13 or 14. That is their high school. They're just skipping high school altogether. They're going from something like this. They're getting, the foundation of the higher learning through the associate's degree, and then they, move on from there. Anybody else? Way back there, I don't know if someone with a mic.
Can you give me a second?
He's almost to you.
My question is, if you can't reach a consensus, how do you facilitate the group to be able to come to something that they can live with, or that?
If we cannot reach consensus, we continue to talk about it. And really, that's what happens. That's why it's slow. So sometimes we cannot reach consensus. But there's things that you can get immediate approval on, even outside of a meeting. Oh, a piece of the well broke and we all need water. You're going to get instant consensus on spending the money to fix that, right? This family, there's one thing I didn't mention and I will now, is that when you move there, you start with visitor status and you can become a member after 2 years. And you are given a sponsor who kind of helps you for the first 2 years, answers all your questions, help you to navigate relationships, get to know people, And I think that really helps a lot too, is that you get that 2-year kind of trial period with people. And so until you're a member, you can speak up at a meeting, but if you're brand new and you don't really understand what's going on, you're like, I don't think we should do that. They're only really using the voice of the members to make their consensus decisions. Is my time up? Okay, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Come find me anytime. I will be around.